Tonight, several breaking stories as we come on. The dangerous flooding slamming the Northeast, tens of millions under alert along the eastern seaboard, and the Democratic Senate candidate now accused of rape. First, the terrifying moment a roof collapses in a big box store in New Jersey. A wall of water and debris as shoppers scramble to get out. Roads swallowed, cars submerged, and the moment an officer carries a baby through the floodwaters. Breaking right now, Maine Democrats calling on Senate candidate Graham Platner to drop out. The new accusation of rape against him that he's denying what his accuser just said. First, the red card, then the reversal. Team USA's star striker back on the field after President Trump personally stepped in. Why rivals are crying foul ahead of one of the biggest World Cup matches in U.S. soccer history. The new body cam video from that crash landing in New York City. Officers pulling passengers from a seaplane that crashed into the East River. Charlie Kirk's widow coming within feet of his accused killer in court today. The moment she had to leave the courtroom with one of President Trump's sons also inside. Driverless car meltdown, passengers stranded on the streets of San Francisco. One Waymo driving right into an exploding firework. The Category 5 super typhoon slamming into U.S. territories in the Pacific. Bill Cairns is tracking it. And the shocking moment a truck explodes on a highway. What caused that blast? Plus, why Starbucks is now paying their baristas to make TikToks on the job. Top story starts right now. And good evening. Tonight, the severe flood threat intensifying for millions. Torrential rains pounding the East Coast, causing massive damage. And dramatic images coming into the newsroom. Look at this. A roof at a BJ's wholesale store collapsing under the weight of all that water in Ocean Township, New Jersey. You see it sends shoppers just running for their lives. Everyone there somehow okay. Also in New Jersey, some scary moments as a tree smashes right through a garage with the owners inside. In Pennsylvania, raging water sending cars nose first into the floods, and howling winds ripping through Ohio, knocking down power lines and trees there. More than 7,000 flights delayed or canceled, with Americans still trying to travel back from the holiday. Amtrak warning of moderate to significant delays as hundreds of thousands of people across the U.S. are still without power. And the threat is not over yet. You know our man Bill Cairns is standing by to track it all. But we want to begin with Erin McLaughlin. She's live from hard-hit Paramus, New Jersey. The rain's still coming down there, Erin. Talk to our viewers about what they're going through in that part of New Jersey.
The rain's coming down pretty hard, and it's been like this for hours, now expected to last through the night as tens of millions of Americans across the Northeast are on flood watch. Tonight, new surveillance video shows the moment the roof of a wholesale club collapsed, sending shoppers running for their lives, and a wall of water and debris crashing down in Monmouth County, New Jersey.
People started screaming. It was just pandemonium.
According to the sheriff, incredibly, no one was injured. The club, the latest casualty of a summer of severe weather. And tonight, the threat is far from over. Tens of millions across the Northeast on flood alert as torrential rain sends water surging, triggering travel delays at major airports, swallowing roadways, submerging cars, and catching drivers off guard.
Forget the car, man. It's material stuff.
Leading to harrowing rescues. First responders guiding this woman and child to safety. And parts of New York's famed Coney Island completely underwater. This morning, an all-out effort to clean up after a severe storm tore through this New Jersey suburb over the weekend. That tree came crashing down across those power lines, slamming into that house. Buddy and Janet Scalera were home when a 75-year-old sycamore tree collapsed onto their garage. Oh my God, Buddy! They caught the chaos on camera. You've also got the power lines coming down.
He had to carry the dog over the live wire.
All of it capping off a hectic holiday weekend with more severe weather on the way.
And Erin joins us once again from a rainy Paramus there. Erin, so many across the country losing power over the weekend. Where you are, there's still people without power as well.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. After a series of storms slammed the Northeast, nearly 200,000 without power, including this street in Paramus, New Jersey. Let me just move out of the way to show you the scene. far as you can see, there's tree after downed tree. The crews have been out working through this rain for hours to restore power, and officials tell us that power will not be back on until Wednesday. Tom.
You see that web of power lines there. A lot of work to be done. Aaron, we thank you for that. I want to get right over to our good friend, NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, the storms are not letting up just yet.
Yeah, we still have additional flash flood warnings, and we're also going to be watching what's going to happen in the next couple of days with another huge heat wave, but more on that in the weeks ahead. So we had a lot of flooding problems, mostly in coastal New Jersey. Southern Brooklyn, Coney Island picked up almost 7 to 8 inches of rain earlier today, and that caused some water rescues. Now the airports are still trying to do catch up. It's been a nightmare all holiday weekend long with these storms messing up everyone's travel. All the maroon boxes is where we have current flash flood warnings. So a few in Pennsylvania, a few in Delaware and Maryland, one new one just south of the Richmond area. And that'll be the case throughout this afternoon towards tonight. The areas that have heaviest rain tomorrow morning when you're trying to get to work. Watch out, our friends, Boston, Providence, all the way down to Nantucket. Tom, that's where they could pick up another couple inches and have water on the roads in the morning.
And then, Bill, while we have you here, let's talk about that Category 5 typhoon tearing across the Pacific. This is a monster. Packing winds up to 180 miles per hour. It slammed into Guam and the northern Mariana Islands, which, of course, house critical U.S. military bases and Americans as well. That storm gearing up to make landfall again?
In a couple days. It looks like it's going to be a huge, big beast and then approach mainland China. So here's the latest. I mean, this looks classic, right? If this was a hurricane in the Atlantic, we'd be like, uh-oh, where's it going? It's going to be over pretty much just very warm water for the next couple of days. It has 155 mile per hour winds. It's got about 18 mile per hour forward motion. And here's the path. It avoids the Philippines. It possibly will make landfall in northern portions of Taiwan. It has what we'd call a Category 3 storm, and then it goes into mainland China. So that won't be until the end of this week into the weekend, but still could be a huge, devastating storm with a lot of rainfall over the next couple of days, Tom.
Yeah, it's a big one. All right, Bill, we thank you for that. Now to some breaking news we're following tonight in one of the biggest Senate races in the country, if not the biggest. We're learning of new information from a woman who dated Graham Platner, now saying that he raped her. NBC's Ryan Nobles reports top Democrats, even the Maine Democratic Party, now calling on him to exit the race.
Tonight, Maine's Democratic Party calling on its own nominee to drop out of the Senate race there, with Graham Platner facing an allegation of rape, saying he's reassessing his campaign.
We are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward.
All as a woman who was previously romantically involved with Platner says he forced her into non-consensual sex 5 years ago.
He was heavily intoxicated, had intentions with me, and wasn't listening when I said no. I don't believe that you can think that that scenario was consensual. You have to understand that that wasn't. When somebody is repeatedly, when somebody in the middle of it says, "Don't touch me," that's obviously not consensual.
Politico saying they spoke with a man Rasicote dated and confided in the years after the alleged incident and reviewed documents, including emails between Rasicote and her therapist. Rasicote telling Politico she supports Platner politically, but saying, "I just want the truth out there. I just want people to have a whole scope of who he is as a person." Platner denies the allegation.
I wanted to directly address the troubling, serious, and false allegations against me. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically false.
Platner has maintained support from high-profile Democrats despite a slew of scandals, including a former girlfriend telling the New York Times he, quote, twisted her arm behind her back and shoved her in a bedroom, trapping her in, which he denied, and had a tattoo widely recognized as a Nazi SS symbol covered up after backlash, saying he did not know its meaning.
Ryan Nobles joins us now. And Ryan, these allegations clearly are so disturbing. And this race has massive implications for the balance of power in the Senate.
Yeah, Tom, it might be the most important state on the map. Democrats likely can't take back the Senate majority without this Maine seat. Platner is facing the longtime Republican incumbent, Senator Susan Collins. There is a time clock here. He would need to drop out of the race by July 13th in order to be replaced on the ballot. So the Democrats and Platner himself have a lot of big decisions to make in a short amount of time to do it, Tom.
Ryan, on that point right there, is there another Democrat that is out there, someone that was in the primary system, or somebody the Democrats can nominate to get on that ballot to make this race competitive like it was?
Yeah, I think the Democrats believe that they can win this race with whoever is on the ballot, given the fact that the Democratic brand is strong in this particular midterm cycle. And there is a long list of potential Democrats that could take Platner's place. Perhaps the first name that will emerge is the incumbent governor, Janet Mills. You'll recall that she actually did compete in that primary for a short period of time. She never gained much traction, but was in the race. There were also a number of Democrats that ran for governor, not all of them winning. In fact, most of them not winning the gubernatorial primary. One in particular, Troy Jackson, who is close with Platner, could be someone who comes from the progressive wing of the party, who Maine Democrats might be willing to tap. There's also a number of congressional candidates who also might be considered. So they've got a long list of people that could potentially be interested, but none of that will happen unless Platner himself decides that it's time for him to exit the race, Tom.
All right, Ryan Nobles for us. Ryan, we thank you for that. We're going to take a turn now to the World Cup. We're less than an hour away from the high-stakes matchup between the U.S. and Belgium, and controversy still swirling around the red card reversal that will let Team USA star striker play tonight. Steve Patterson is breaking down Donald Trump's influential call with the head of FIFA.
Tonight, Team USA's match just hours away, facing Belgium, and a growing controversy over whether one of America's top stars should be allowed to play.
All I did, I asked for a review.
FIFA now clearing the way for American Folarin Balogun to play. President Trump revealing he called the head of FIFA after a referee's controversial red card had suspended him.
I'm good at this stuff. I didn't think it was a foul. I thought it was two great athletes that crashed into each other and got entangled. That was not a guy punching somebody in the face.
This was the play in question. Balogun stepping on the ankle of an opposing player, the red card given out after a later review of the video. It would have meant a one-game suspension for Balogun.
I don't think it was the correct call. I think a yellow card would have been fair.
FIFA then reversing course, delaying Balogun's suspension for up to a year after it was reviewed by a committee. FIFA's president tonight saying its decisions are made independently based on specific facts before them.
It was a committee that made the decision, and they made the right decision. You want to see a game with your best players. The people in Belgium, if they win the game, they can be very proud. If they would win the game with a player missing, it would have been a different feeling.
FIFA has delayed suspensions before, including Portuguese superstar Ronaldo, who was given a red card that could have caused him to miss 2 World Cup matches. But there's outrage in Europe over the delay in Balogun's suspension. The Royal Belgian Football Federation saying it was astonished by FIFA's decision, suggesting it went against ethics, fair competition, and the interest of football. Belgian fans upset in Seattle.
You know, rules are the same for everyone. You stick to it, and that's it.
But American fans rejoicing.
I mean, let's just play the sport, and we're here to celebrate that. And, you know, we're here to celebrate our teams.
And Balogun's American teammates excited he's back too.
He was like, yeah, like, I'm in. And then everyone just like got hyped, and we were just, pumped for him.
All right, with that, Steve Patterson joins us tonight from Seattle, where there's so much excitement. So, Steve, we just got word that Balogun is in the starting lineup tonight. How are fans on the ground feeling about this match tonight? It means so much.
Tom, this is a situation where confident is an understatement. I want to show you something. Take a look at the Seattle skyline, the fans dotting every square inch of the aquarium. They're going to watch on a giant screen. And of course, if the U.S. wins tonight, it'll be the deepest run that they've made in nearly 30 years. Quarterfinals for the first time since 2002. Tom?
All right, Steve Patterson, we will be rooting them on. For more on the red card reversal, I want to bring in Sophia Kai. She's a White House reporter for Politico, but also covers FIFA, so that's pretty incredible. Dax McCartney's a former professional soccer player and soccer analyst and a new friend of Top Story. So, Dax, this is not unusual, but it is sort of unprecedented here. Is this tainted in any way, and did President Trump go too far? Does this look like the Americans did something illegal?
Well, I don't necessarily know if illegal would be the right way to put it, but what I do know is that the outcome is correct. If you watch the play, if you saw the red card, it was fundamentally not a red card, and the processes that went into that can absolutely be called into question. But also, I would like to see a little bit more transparency and consistency with regard to how we got to the outcome. I know for a fact that the U.S. men's national team and U.S. Soccer Federation have done everything in their power to make sure that Balogun Balogun can play. And now that he is able to play, I love the U.S. men's national team chances tonight.
Sophia, I guess my question to you is, the president has a relationship here with the FIFA president as well, right? He was awarded, I think, the Peace Prize by FIFA. There's been other awards and a very cozy relationship. If this was, say, Colombia or Norway, would they have gotten this overturned?
Colombia and Norway, they don't have the same kind of relationship with FIFA. The Trump-Gianni Infantino relationship spans 8 years, all the way back to Trump's first term, when the U.S. first found out it had won those rights to host the World Cup. And back then, Trump didn't even know that he would be president. But over the last 2 years in particular, Gianni Infantino has made himself a regular presence in that Oval Office. And the two men have talked during good times. They spoke after Trump struck Iran, which was not very convenient for FIFA. And now they spoke again. So when the president of the United States calls, Gianni Infantino picked up.
Yeah. Dax, I want to ask you, if the U.S. does win tonight, right, like we hope they do, does this in any way, and I keep using that word, taint this victory? Will the international soccer community see it this way, or will they see it? And I'm going to be biased here because I'm an American. I'm for Team USA. I agree with your point. I don't think they should have gotten the red card. I think a lot of soccer fans agree with that. But rules are rules, right? Yeah. And is this going to be like the hand of God here? I mean, is this going to be like a play that people go back to and start reviewing and saying it shouldn't have come out that way?
Well, you can't really control what the international narrative is around decisions made by FIFA, who have, I think, operated in this way in the past. But what I do know is that the U.S. men's national team is going to step on the field and they are going to try to win a historic game tonight. And they want to do so with their best players. Now, like I said before, the outcome, it is correct. Fuller and Balogun should absolutely be available to play this game. Now, what happens after that is anyone's guess. A little bit more transparency, a little bit more consistency with regard to some of these decisions moving forward. But I don't think the U.S. men's national team should apologize for anything.
I'm with you. Sophia, there's a bit of irony, though, when it comes to the president fighting for Balogun, who is a U.S. citizen by birthright. His Nigerian mother gave birth while in the U.S. on a trip. That type of citizenship is something the president has tried to end, right? The Supreme Court had to step in. But clearly he has the president's support here.
He has the president's support because the president likes winners, and the president knows that he's the U.S. men's national team's top scorer, so the president wants him in. And we have reporting that the White House even offered to make its lawyers available in this case. And Gianni Infantino, Lutnick, Secretary Howard Lutnick, as well as Andrew Giuliani were all involved since Wednesday. That tells you just how close to this and invested to this they have been.
Dax, last questions for you. We're getting closer and closer, right? What teams look great, and can Team USA, if they win tonight, compete with these other great teams around the world?
Absolutely. Why not us? That's Mauricio Pochettino's message as he has been relaying all World Cup. This is going to be our biggest test against Belgium, no question about it. But if you get through this game against Belgium, you meet the mighty Spain. And then you have a potential matchup with Morocco or France. Argentina, France, and Spain, I think they're on another level in terms of how they've played in this tournament and the quality that they possess. But the U.S. men's national team has played better in this World Cup than they've ever played in any international tournament. I absolutely think that they can do the impossible and go win this.
And they definitely have the narrative in their favor here. A lot of action, a lot of drama. All right, Dax and Sophia, we thank you so much for being on Top Story tonight. For all the World Cup action, you can watch the games in Spanish exclusively on Telemundo and Peacock. They are so fun to watch. All right, in Tehran, though, we're going to take a turn here. Millions have been flooding the streets for the funeral procession of Iran's late supreme leader. Our Richard Engel is on the ground there with rare access tonight.
Iranian officials say millions attended the funeral procession today for Iran's former supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, assassinated by the United States and Israel at the start of the war in February.
The body of the late supreme leader is right there on a truck being brought through the streets of this city. This is a show of mourning, but also a political rally, a show of national solidarity, a way for the Iranian government to show that even after the war with Israel and the United States, that the government here is still standing. In fact, many Iranians say that because of the war, the government's grip on power has become even stronger.
But not all Iranians remember Khamenei fondly. For over 3 decades, he ran a strict, authoritarian government, stoked regional conflict, and oversaw a brutal crackdown on women in 2022, the regime killing hundreds of people and arresting thousands. Today,
Opposition voices here were silent. We managed to speak to a member of the powerful Revolutionary Guard. They almost never talk to foreign journalists.
Do you think the war is over, or do you think this is just a pause?
We believe this war ends when we avenge the blood of Sayyid Ali Khamenei and his soldiers. The war is not over for us, he said. And everywhere you looked, there were calls for revenge.
The new supreme leader, Ayatollah Moshtaba, didn't appear today and hasn't been seen since he was injured in the same attack that killed his father. Tom?
Big questions surrounding him. All right, Richard, thank you. When we come back tonight here on Top Story, inside the race to rescue passengers from that crash landing into a river in New York City, the dramatic new video. Plus the Waymo meltdown, robo-taxis leaving people stranded on the 4th of July, one even driving through fireworks, how the company's responding. And the urgent health alert tonight, a mysterious stomach bug spreading across the country, what you need to know ahead on Top Story. We're back now with a dramatic rescue caught on camera, a plane crash landing on a river in New York City. And tonight there's new video of the rescue with everyone getting pulled out safely. Here's Sam Brock.
You see it right there to the left? To the left, right where the helicopter is.
Tonight, the frantic rush to save passengers on the East River.
How many people you got?
Seen through brand new body cam footage from NYPD's Marine unit.
Okay, come this way, come this way, come this way.
After 8 people on board a seaplane had to be rescued following a hard landing Sunday.
You're doing really good.
The NTSB and FAA now both investigating the incident, the sudden drama captured from inside the cabin, where passengers remained collected even as the aircraft hit the water, snapping off the piece that connects the wing to the fuselage. Moments later, this emergency call from the pilot.
Mayday, the plane down on the water.
With helicopters above and NYPD boats racing to help, no one, incredibly, was seriously injured. Kathy Babis has been a pilot for 50 years and is certified on seaplanes.
Sometimes the water is doing something you absolutely didn't expect at that moment in time, and you end up with a hard landing. The nose will typically flip over, then everybody's upside down, and that is less survivable. And I give kudos to the passengers. They were remarkably calm.
Tonight, these passengers just relieved.
Come this way, come this way.
For the heroic response and a plane that stayed above water.
All right, Sam Brock joins us now. Sam, great to see you here in the studio for Top Story as usual. So, incredibly rescued everybody. Great work by everybody, including the pilot. Do we know why the plane went down?
So the NTSB and the FAA have not specified what they're looking at. Mechanical failure or engine failure or human error. Here's what's really interesting in this, Tom. That Mayday call that came in was after the aircraft had already hit the water. Presumably, if there was some kind of issue going on in the air, the pilot would have called ATC then, but he didn't. So that's really clue number one. Clue number two is that they landed near the 23rd Street seaport, which is not far away from where they were supposed to be anyway, which is to say it seems like the pilot was in the area. And, you know, at this point, when I spoke to that pilot who's done seaplane piloting before, what she said was you can get a huge rogue wave, you can get a massive gusty wind, and a plane that is already close to the water can be thrown off of its trajectory. You could see a situation like that. The pilot was able to keep the nose of the aircraft above the water. If it dipped beneath it, the whole thing could have capsized, and you could be talking about fatalities in this case.
A much different
thankfully
story.
or not.
Yeah, Sam, okay, great. Great to see you here. Thank you, man. Now to the Waymo meltdown in San Francisco. One robo-taxi driving right through an exploding fireworks show, getting stuck in traffic for hours, and others leaving passengers furious when they ran out of battery. Here's Liz Kreutz.
It's yet another self-driving car mishap.
Dude, our Waymo just drove into a firework.
Rose Peterson and her fiancé were in a Waymo on July 4th in San Francisco when the robo-taxi drove right over illegal fireworks in the middle of the street.
It didn't even stop. It didn't brake. It didn't hesitate. It just literally went on like nothing happened.
Thankfully, the company says no one was hurt, but Rose says it left her questioning the car's safety.
We were just really upset and distraught and just thinking about what could have happened, not just to us, but the people around us.
Meanwhile, nearby,
check out all these Waymos.
Several Waymo cars got stuck in the traffic following the city's big fireworks show.
This is basically a Waymo traffic jam.
Dave Gungona took this video after getting trapped in the gridlock.
People were getting out of their cars and
They were actually yelling and screaming at these Waymos.
He says he was there for 2 hours before Waymo employees arrived. Some cars seen here getting towed away. Waymo says extreme traffic congestion disrupted normal operations and that some of their cars ran out of charge while idling. It all comes after a string of questionable traffic incidents involving Waymos. One recently drove into floodwaters in Atlanta, and in LA last year, another appeared to drive right into an active police scene.
All right, Liz Kreutz joins us now from LA. And Liz, we're now hearing about a second incident where a Waymo drove over a firework as well.
Yeah, Tom, that's right. Waymo tells us that there was another incident on July 4th of a Waymo driving over fireworks and that car actually lit on fire. The company says thankfully that car was unoccupied, so nobody was injured. But it shows you the dangers. And Rose, who we spoke to, who was in that other car that drove over fireworks, said it certainly concerned her that this technology is not able to identify that there was something in the road it shouldn't drive over. Now, Waymo did say that they are committed to safety and to evaluating and learning from these events moving forward. Tom.
Okay, Liz Kreutz, good to see you. Coming up tonight, new developments in the case against the suspect accused of killing Charlie Kirk. The piece of evidence revealed today. Plus, the state of emergency in West Virginia. Look at this massive fire tearing through a warehouse. People there now ordered to shelter in place. We'll tell you what's going on. Stay with us. We are back now with a high-profile hearing for the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk. Kirk's widow, Erica, inside the courtroom today, just feet away from the man prosecutors say assassinated her husband. The president's son, Donald Trump Jr., also there. NBC's Camila Bernal is following this one for us. She joins us live. Camila, walk us through who took the witness stand today and what we can expect.
Hey, Tom. So this is a preliminary hearing. So what that means is that the judge will hear evidence and witnesses and then decide whether this can move forward to the actual trial. And today we heard from 2 different prosecution witnesses, 2 law enforcement officers. The second the first one took the stand, he started sort of describing what happened that day. But when he got to the point of speaking about the moment that Charlie Kirk got shot, that's when Erica Kirk and Charlie Kirk's family got up and left the courtroom. The second officer that was on the stand was essentially describing some of the videos. And right before they played some of these graphic videos, again, Erica Kirk and the family members leaving the courtroom. Like you mentioned, Don Jr. also there to support the family. And the defense in this case really objecting to all of the videos, including one of the videos where we see the suspect here in a Ring camera video. And this is what police officers say is Tyler Robinson before the shooting, parking in a nearby neighborhood. So there's many, many videos that the prosecution wants to present here, the defense objecting, and also essentially saying that they believe that law enforcement didn't do the job that they should have done, essentially saying there were only 6 officers where there were thousands among that crowd. So we're starting to get a little bit of what the defense might present if there is a trial. But of course, we'll have to wait. This is going to likely take the entire week. And then we'll have to wait to see what the judge decides about a new trial or the actual trial moving forward here, Tom.
Okay, Camila Bernal, we thank you for that. We're going to stay on top of it throughout the week. Violence also breaking out in several cities over the holiday weekend. You may have seen this in your neighborhood, fueled by dangerous, quote-unquote, teen takeovers. Multiple officers injured in the chaotic scenes, one officer getting beaten down, dozens of kids arrested. George Solis has the videos.
A violent brawl breaking out in South Carolina. A North Charleston police officer tackled to the ground and pummeled repeatedly during a 4th of July gathering of teens and young adults that descended into chaos. The video does not show how the fight started. This officer seen here firing his taser. Police say the 400-person crowd grew out of control. 4 minors and 2 adults were arrested. Authorities releasing these photos of guns and a makeshift spear recovered from the scene. The takeovers also ramping up in Raleigh, where videos show overrun streets and sidewalks as authorities say more than 5,000 teens began fighting early Sunday morning.
Both units are transporting the 2 victims.
Police say 9 people were shot and more than 24 young adults now face charges ranging from fighting to assaulting an officer. Chaos also unfolding in South Florida, where authorities say a Miami-Dade sheriff's deputy's hand was burned by a firework that launched in his direction.
Authorities say with these videos now circulating on social media, more arrests are now likely.
Tom?
Okay, George, thank you for that. Now to Top Stories news feed to check out what else is happening around the country. We're going to start with a massive fire ripping through a warehouse in West Virginia. Look at this. You can see the clouds of smoke still billowing from the debris. And the fire initially breaking out on Saturday. The governor had to issue a state of emergency for Wood County. He's also now ordering people there to shelter in place. Still no word on what caused it. An AI-generated actress just booked a full-length feature film. Particle 6 Productions announced today it's working on a new comedy drama starring Tilly Norwood. We've told you about the AI actor who has faced backlash in Hollywood. Some critics argue it takes away from human artistry. The company behind Norwood says the movie will be a hybrid production with traditional film professionals working alongside AI specialists. And in the sports world, one of England's players couldn't miss the rest of the World Cup because of a freak injury after last night's game. You have to see this. You can see Jordan Henderson there trying to jump over a short wall, then falling awkwardly to the ground. It happened as the team was celebrating its win over Mexico in the round of 16. England's coach says Henderson seriously hurt his wrist and that he went to the hospital. England is set to play Norway in a big match on Saturday. At a Top Stories health check and the mysterious stomach bug sickening hundreds of people across at least 18 states. The parasitic infection is spread through contaminated food and often linked to fresh produce. But right now, health officials say the source of this particular outbreak, it remains a mystery. I want to bring in our Shaq Brewster on this one. Shaq, so this infection can be a bit more severe than typical food poisoning. Explain why health officials are so concerned.
Well, Tom, officials are concerned not just only with the symptoms, but also with the spread that they're seeing. And we just got new numbers from Michigan's Department of Health helping to quantify what they've been seeing in that state. We know that a week ago today, on June 29th, they say that they were following 171 cases of cyclopsoriasis. We now know that today that number has gone up to 681 cases. Tom, that's quadruple what we saw just a week ago. And the thing is, we've been reaching out to health officials across the Midwest, and they're seeing similar trends as well. In Ohio, since mid-June, they're seeing a high surge in cases. Here in Illinois, the health department not giving us a number, but saying that they're seeing a higher than normal, higher than average spread in this virus. And Tom, this is not a virus that is known to be life-threatening, but it has led and can lead to hospitalization. We know that, as you mentioned, it's a little bit more serious than a standard stomach bug. It's more serious than food poisoning. I'll delicately say that it's known for causing a serious gastrointestinal discomfort. But the CDC right now at this hour, they're not saying that they know where this is coming from or even if all those cases are connected. But you have these health officials, Tom, taking it very seriously tonight.
And I know you have some tips for our viewers now. What are the best things people can do if they're sort of concerned about this?
Yeah, and let's be clear, this is something that usually spreads when someone consumes fresh produce or drinks water that has been contaminated. We know that previous outbreaks have been tied to things like raspberries, to mixed salad containers and salad kits. We know that also, and we have some of those on your screen right now, fresh cilantro, fresh basil, snow peas, and green onions. Officials are saying that the best way to protect against this is to cook that food, cook it above that 158 degrees. If you can't do that, then they say wash it thoroughly. That's a message that they're not just telling consumers at home, but also telling food preparers, restaurants, and those packaging services. They're saying this is something that can be prevented, but they're making sure that people know that it's spreading right now.
All right, Shaq Brewster working on his medical degree there. Shaq, we thank you for that one.
You got it.
Now to the Americas and an update on Cuba. Raul Castro's grandson, Raul Guillermo Rodriguez, also known as Raulito or the Crab, speaking out in his first interview with an American news outlet, telling USA Today he's open to speaking with President Trump. That coming as the island's energy grid has entirely collapsed yet again for the third time just this year in scorching 90-plus degree heat. Images show people setting up solar panels on the streets to charge their phones and electronics. Joining us now here on Top Story is Romina Ruiz Goyrena. She's the executive editor for investigations and storytelling at USA Today. She's part of the team that interviewed Rodriguez Castro in Havana. Romina, thank you so much for joining Top Story tonight. Break down for us and for our viewers who exactly Raulito is and why he's so powerful in Cuba.
So thank you so much for having me here. Basically, the most important thing to know is that he is the nieto preferido. He is the favorite grandson of the former Cuban leader Raul Castro. He was the head of his security, but as a result, he was and has been in his shadow through the mandate that Raul Castro had for almost a decade, and continues to be his right-hand man. And even though there is a president in Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel, there is a lot of, as he said himself, of respect for the elders, and he's very much the voice of his grandfather.
Yeah. I want to read something to our viewers that stood out to me. I don't think it was a mistake that you put it this high up in the story. This is from your report. Quote, at the height of their power, Rodriguez Castro's grandfather and great-uncle Fidel were rarely seen without their olive green military uniforms. Rodriguez Castro wore light blue skinny jeans, a tight black Hugo Boss T-shirt, and Hermes sneakers. He also had a Ferragamo bag, you guys noted at one point. He also wore a Dolce & Gabbana shirt and more designer sneakers. He may be the grandson of the revolution, but some Cubans right now can't even eat. The average Cuban makes $16 to $20 a month. You know this. How can he be viewed as a serious leader in Cuba when he's living such a lavish lifestyle and everyone around him is starving?
Well, I think that, yes, he did tell me that he didn't purchase any of these clothes, that they were all gifts. But I think it would also surprise a lot of the viewers to know that there's also a lot of money in Cuba that flows in from remittances and flows in from basically Cuban exiles that are bankrolling their families, and actually a lifeline for their families, both for food, goods, internet, things that are absolutely out of the reach of a Cuban that does not have any family.
Right, but it's not Hermes sneakers and Dolce & Gabbana T-shirts. I mean, my family sends money to our family in Cuba, and I know it's not going to buy designer clothes. Essentially, my question is, how can he be respected by the Cuban people if he's living like this? And I mean, in your story, you show that people were hugging him and he seemed to be very popular. Or do people in Cuba, do the Cubans not care about this? I just think that if you have no power and you have no food and this leader is running around with gold chains and Hermes sneakers, I just wonder if that weighs politically. It's not a great look, if you will.
I agree with you. I think actually what is very interesting, though, is that he embodies what Cubans aspire and what they want, right? So he's not in military fatigues. He's not dressed how the traditional revolutionaries were. He's dressed in this aesthetic that would be no different than, say, Hialeah or parts of Westchester in Miami-Dade County. But it's actually what Cubans on the ground aspire to have. They aspire to have this access to this wealth.
I have a two-part question for you now. So who is in charge in Cuba, right? Is it Miguel Diaz-Canel, who is the current head of state, or is it Raulito, who is sort of a proxy leader for Raul Castro? And I ask that because why would he grant this interview to USA Today now? We've seen sort of several leaders grant interviews, including to NBC News. Diaz-Canel sat down with Kristen Welker here at NBC News. But why do you think Raulito wanted to sit down with USA Today? Do you think he's setting himself up to be the next leader of Cuba, or at least the go-between Cuba and the United States?
I mean, this question came up multiple times during our conversation, right? And he assured me that absolutely he works in tandem with Diaz-Canel, that they work absolutely in lockstep, that he is really a proxy, that he was actually chosen by his grandfather and with Diaz-Canel in order to spearhead these negotiations in the same way that President Trump has said that Marco Rubio is the one who is in charge of the Cuba issue. So he tried to mirror this time and time again, that there's no difference here. He said to us that he had no political aspirations, and actually this story is an accumulation of many interviews that the team had with people who have had personal dealings, and all of them said the same thing, that they didn't see him as someone who was actually like gunning for power. But to us, he did say that, and this was his caveat time and time again, that if the revolution needed him, that he would step up, but only if the revolution needed him.
And that leads to my last question here. Do you think he's trying to set himself up to be the next leader of Cuba, to just stay in Cuba if there is a transition, or just to make sure he doesn't end up like Nicolás Maduro behind bars in a federal prison here in the United States?
I think the real question we should be asking ourselves is if the U.S. government has sanctioned so many members of the Castro family, why is it that he has not been sanctioned himself? And I think as the reporting bears out, we still don't know if he will or won't, and that's what we'll have to see.
It's a great point, and I invite everyone to read your story in USA Today. The other point, the counterpoint, of course, is that the Trump administration has been very clear that at Castro, they don't want a Castro to lead Cuba, but we shall see what happens. We thank you so much for coming on tonight. Again, very big exclusive you and your newspaper got. Still to come tonight, the fiery explosion overseas, a truck bursting into flames, rocking other cars on the highway. What caused it? Plus, a new twist in the royal drama surrounding Prince Harry and his family, why he says he won't be staying at Buckingham Palace. Stay with us. We're back now with the deadly Russian strikes on Ukraine's capital. The escalation coming just hours ahead of the NATO summit in Turkey. Our Keir Simmons has the details.
Tonight, this is Russia's message to NATO, right on the eve of its critical summit. A massive fireball in the early hours of this morning. Another Russian ballistic missile getting through. Ukraine's President Zelensky set to tell world leaders Patriot missile defenses are an urgent priority, but they are in short supply everywhere. 22 Ukrainians dead today as fire crews again searched for survivors amid smouldering rubble. The second Russian bombardment in less than a week. President Trump speaking with Russia's President Putin.
President Putin wants it to end. I will tell you that very strongly. A good call. And President Zelensky actually wants it to end now. And we're going to be going to NATO, and we're going to be talking about it. And I think we're going to get it. I think we're going to get it ended.
Ukraine, for its part, hitting Russian oil refineries and Putin's prized Crimea.
All right, with that, Keir Simmons joins Top Story tonight. Keir, looking ahead to tomorrow, what is President Trump looking to get out of this NATO summit?
Well, Tom, President Trump has even suggested that he might not be at the NATO summit if it weren't for the fact that it was being held. It is going to be held in Turkey. And Turkey, of course, is led by President Erdogan, who is very close to President Trump. President Trump says he is going because President Erdogan is hosting the event. Now, the U.S., the Trump administration, is under review. It is looking at the question of America's presence in Europe. So I think that is a topic that very likely will come up. The Europeans will be wanting to say that they are spending more on defense. But we've heard President Trump just in the past few days again reiterate that he thinks that the Europeans do not contribute enough to NATO. Another question when it comes to Turkey and where this event is being held is it does play a pivotal role here in the Middle East and also in relation to Russia. And as I said in my report, Tom, that question about how to solve the war between Ukraine and Russia is still looming. President Trump, of course, suggested that he would be able to solve it quickly. So far, he has not been able to. Tom?
Keir Simmons for us tonight. Keir, good to see you as always. Now to Top Stories Global Watch, a check of what else is happening around the world. We're going to start with some dramatic and disturbing video out of China's Inner Mongolia region. Look at this. It's a truck exploding on a highway, unleashing a powerful shockwave that rocks other cars on the road. According to Chinese state media, 2 people were killed and 4 others were hurt. Authorities say the truck was carrying a chemical compound when it crashed into another vehicle, triggering that blast you saw there. And wildfires are raging across parts of southern Europe. Hundreds of firefighters in Portugal, Greece, and Spain racing to get them under control. Authorities in Greece's second largest city warning people to stay inside due to reports of toxic smoke. And the fires also impacting the Tour de France. Organizers banned fans from going to parts of the famed cycling race because they say it's just too dangerous. We want to stay overseas now, where Prince Harry is now back in the UK for a few days. For a moment, it seemed like he would be staying at Buckingham Palace, but now that no longer appears to be the case, and it's sparking fresh speculation about the strained relationship between King Charles and his son. Danielle Hamamdjian joins Top Story tonight. Danielle, this is such a strange one, and some conflicting reports today that are coming out and making it even more confusing. So walk us through what has happened and why Harry is in the UK in the first place.
Yeah, it's never straightforward, is it, when it comes to Prince Harry in the UK? Well, first of all, he's in the country because he's kicking off the one-year countdown to the Invictus Games, which, of course, is the sporting event he founded for injured military personnel. He's very proud of it. It's very successful. But whenever he's in the country, always the topic of security comes up, because now that he's not a working member of the royal family, he doesn't have taxpayer-funded security. And given his past, given his family, he's always very conscious of it. Now, the day started with a spokesperson for Prince Harry saying that he had accepted an invitation to stay at Buckingham Palace, which is, of course, headquarters of the royal family in central London. But within minutes, there were multiple outlets citing Buckingham Palace reporting the exact opposite. Buckingham Palace is cited as saying that by the time Prince Harry did say yes on Saturday, quote, the appropriate hospitality and staffing provision was no longer available. Now, many people have been asking, well, how many people do you need to set up a room for 1 or 2 nights for one person in a palace, no less? Well, consider this, that there are various works going on at Buckingham Palace. Areas look like construction sites, and there are no VIP staying there. So to get the appropriate security and staff in place, we understand would take a few days. Another thing to consider here, which adds a layer of complexity, is that there is a legal case going on, and tomorrow is the verdict. This is the case that Prince Harry, along with other high-profile individuals, took to court against the publisher of the Daily Mail, accusing them of unlawful behavior. Tomorrow, the verdict comes out, and palace officials are very mindful that the king, although, of course, he's Prince Harry's father, he does have a constitutional position to consider here. It's unclear if and when Prince Harry will meet his father this week, if at all, if it's going to happen at all, if his wife and children will join him elsewhere in the UK. Tom, what I can tell you with absolute certainty here is that in the UK today, he was not the Harry people were talking about. They were talking about Harry Kane, who, of course, scored the winning goal for England last night, making sure the team moves on now to the quarterfinals in the World Cup.
It was a great match against Mexico, and I'm sure a lot of people in England are talking about that. Okay, Danielle, so great to see you. We thank you for that. When we come back, cashing in on coffee content, why Starbucks is now planning to pay baristas to make TikToks at work. Plus, the emotional moment a military dad comes home and treats his family to a surprise. We'll show it to you. Stay with us. We're back now with a new initiative from Starbucks. If you're on TikTok, you've likely seen coffee content going viral. But now the Java giant is looking to cash in, offering to pay their employees to make TikToks while they're making your coffee. Here's Ryan Chandler.
Spend a day with me as a Starbucks barista.
Starbucks content has long been popular on TikTok, racking up millions of views and comments. Now the coffee giant is leaning into the hype, announcing they'll pay baristas to post on TikTok.
Good morning, how are you? You at the pink drink, right?
TikTok announcing they'll partner with Starbucks in their first custom creator network with Starbucks, which builds on their Green Apron creator program.
Work another 8-hour shift as a Starbucks barista.
Starbucks says they'll work with employees on content ideas, and the baristas could get a cut of the ad revenue. It's the latest example of companies leaning into new marketing strategies, bringing it all straight to social media.
And here's us during a rush. Starbucks will have to walk a fine line to create authenticity in these collaborations, because otherwise people are just going to say, well, you just hired someone to talk really positive things about your brand. And when that happens, Ryan, it really falls short.
Data from Sprout Social indicates 40% of consumers say they frequently discover a product or service from employee-generated content. That number jumping to more than 60% when you look at Gen Z. But Starbucks' new strategy is already brewing some controversy. One union representing thousands of Starbucks baristas accusing the company of paying baristas to say nice things instead of paying them what they deserve amid demands for higher wages. Starbucks says the new collab is a chance to celebrate and amplify their employees' storytelling.
Ryan Chandler joins us now. So, Ryan, is this going to slow down lines and the time it takes to get your drink?
Tom, I think the exact implementation of this program, how that plays out, is still unclear. Presumably for Starbucks, you'd assume that they want the impact of this program to be felt online and not in line. I will say it does seem like this is going to be a relatively small scale, at least starting out. They'll work with select employees collaborating on content ideas together. And then if Starbucks likes an employee's content, then they can put it up as a TikTok ad and share the ad revenue. But it's not like all the employees are going to be jumping on this, making content behind the counter at once, Tom.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out. It's an exciting new idea. All right, Ryan, we thank you for that. Finally tonight, after a long deployment with the Navy, one military dad found the perfect place to reunite with his family. Here's that emotional homecoming.
A short walk is all that stands between this military dad and the family he hasn't seen in so long. That's Navy Personnel Specialist First Class Adam Popke. Surprising his family, his son Charlie notices him first. Then his wife, Michaela, overcome with emotion. Finally, there's his little girl, Lorelei, jumping into his arms.
Good morning.
Yes.
The elephant encounter, a surprise for his daughter's 5th birthday. Little did she know an even bigger surprise was in store.
I'm so happy Daddy's back.
After 9 months, it's just so amazing to be back with Charlie, Lorelei, and my wife.
And this hug says it all. A family so glad to be together again.
All right, that does it for us. We thank you so much for watching Top Story. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way. We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.